Welcome to episode number 5 of the 2 Goal Lead podcast presented by BCHL Network. My name is Brian Wiebe. Thrilled to have you along and thrilled to have our guest with us here today. Before we get to our guest, though, he's from the Cowichan Valley Capitals. I do want to remind you that you can find the 2 Goal Lead podcast presented by BCHL Network on all of your favorite social media platforms: Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Audible, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Pandora, Spotify, Stitcher. Oh, and of course, when I say social media platforms, I mean wherever you get your favorite podcasts. Thank you so much for those who have subscribed to this point. Would love if you could hit that like and subscribe button on your favorite podcast platform and continue to listen here to what we're doing with the 2 Goal Lead podcast. As well, check out bchlnetwork.ca. We've also got bchlnetwork.com with lots of great articles there as well, covering the BC Hockey League like a blanket. If I didn't mention it, my name is Brian Wiebe. I'm the editor-in-chief and owner of BCHL Network. And let's get straight into today's guest, because he joins us from Vancouver Island. He is Luke Lavery from the Cowichan Valley Capitals. Luke, thanks so much for taking the time to join us here on the 2 Goal Lead podcast presented by BCHL Network.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
So it's been a bit of a roller coaster for the Cowichan Valley Capitals, but a playoff spot right now is still within reach. What do you think your team needs to work on down the stretch to gain that ground on Langley, Powell River, and look at grabbing one of the last playoff spots in the Coastal Conference?
Yeah, obviously that's the goal right now. We finished with all our games against the Interior Conference, so we have a lot of games coming down to the wire here that are going to mean a lot. We're just trying to get our systems down and figure everything out here so we can get a big push going into the final stretch here.
You started the season in Vernon. You've seen a jump in your offensive production, though, since joining Cowichan Valley in early November. What do you attribute that increase to?
Yeah, I think there's a few things, just a new opportunity and new players. And yeah, obviously it's worked out pretty well here. I get to live at home too. It's just up the road. So there's lots of things that have come into account, but yeah, it's been good for me down here and I'm liking it.
Do you see yourself playing a bit of a different role since joining the Capitals than you were with the Vipers?
Yeah, I think it's more of an offensive role. Like here in Cowichan, I'm on the power play and stuff, and I'm leaned on to score when we need to in big times. And there's a few of us that go out there, and we're out there to produce offense sort of thing. So it's a bigger role over here.
You mentioned about living at home there. Is a comfort level part of the equation too, leading to your success?
Yeah, that's a bit of it too, just not being away from home, getting to see your parents every day and stuff. All the guys that play junior, especially the guys that are from far away, would love to have the opportunity that I have where I get to live at home sort of thing. So I like to use that as a little bit of a slight advantage.
Another thing that was a change in Duncan, the fact that you arrived there just a couple weeks before Mike Vandekamp took over as the general manager and head coach. What's the experience been like for you with Mike behind the bench?
Yeah, I've known Mike for a while since he was an Nanaimo guy, coached in Nanaimo while I was growing up. So it was good to have him come in there. And yeah, he's really brought his old culture into there, and the guys are starting to cling on to it now. So it's working pretty well. And hopefully we see a big change here so we can get into the playoffs.
One, looking at the numbers that you've had since you arrived in Cowichan and with Mike there, do you feel that you're the type of player that meshes well with his type of style of coaching?
Yeah, I really like the way he coaches it. It's well for my game, and just adjusting to what he was bringing in, the new systems and stuff, and they've all flown well with the way that I like to play. So I got no complaints there.
Now, you committed to Providence College back in September 2021. You were with the Nanaimo Clippers at the time. What was it that impressed you the most about the Friars program?
Yeah, it was a good experience going through the recruiting process there, and I don't know, they really stood out to me, the way that they play, their coaching. They won the national championship a few years back, and I went down and toured the campus and loved everything about it. And there was a couple BC boys down there, and they said nothing but great things. So everything just seemed to be a perfect fit. So that was my decision.
So you talked about touring the campus. Was there anything in particular that was just eye-opening for you in going to see it?
Yeah, their hockey facilities are next to none, in my opinion. It was crazy to see the way that they get to train and eat, and all the different facilities and options that they have to go to every day.
Is the plan for you to go to Providence coming up this September?
Yes, that is the plan.
So what facets of your game do you think you need to work on the most to be successful in making that jump from junior hockey to the NCAA level?
I think just fine tuning every part of my game and learning how to play the game the right way, because moving up to whatever level you keep moving up, it just gets more structured and structured. So play the structured game and find out how to play the right way is going to, in my opinion, contribute more than just pure skill or talent into the next level.
Are there any NHL players who you try to model your game after?
I like Bo Horvat. He's a big force. He can score goals, and he likes to be physical, and he can play all 200 feet of the ice.
And is that something that you've been conscious and aware of as you've sort of gone through your development from, starting out at a young age to where you are now?
Yeah, because when you're younger, most of the guys in this league were good players when they're younger, but then keep going up, you start meeting the other guys, so you have to learn how to play the game the right way, because you're not going to be able to skill your way through the game. So there's lots of little things that you have to figure out and get better at.
Now, as part of the Port Alberni pod in the 2021 season, you posted a pretty respectable 11 points in 20 games. You were only 16 at the time. What was that experience like during the pod season?
Yeah, that was a great experience for me. We were a pretty old team back then, so I had lots of guys where I could learn from, and they were kind of showing me the ins and outs of junior, and it was nice to get those 20 games in when we didn't know if we were going to get a season. So we didn't have many young guys back then, so I really had to pull my weight to keep up with the older guys. But yeah, it was a good experience.
What about playing in the pod itself? Because it certainly wasn't a normal season.
Yeah, it was a pretty crazy season. It was about 20 games in 32 days or whatever it was. It was not many practices. It was load the bus at 3:30 and head on up to Port Alberni. But yeah, it was good. I liked the pod, actually, the way that it was ran, and it was very well ran by the league, and the amount of games you got to play in that amount of time was fun. But especially for the older guys, it took a toll on their bodies. So
from a player's perspective, do you like to play that many games against so few opponents, though? Like, there wasn't obviously a lot of change. You were only playing three or four other teams.
Yeah, that part was a little difficult once you got to game 6 or game 7 about the same team. It was like, oh, all right, this is getting a little repetitive. So, but yeah, it was fun because you really, near the end, they were good games because you knew what everybody was bringing. So you had to find the ways to beat them that if you were playing another team you don't play as much, that you could expose easier.
Now, being from Nanaimo, you mentioned it there. Did you go to Clippers games often when you were growing up?
Oh yeah, I was about at almost every Friday night, especially back when Mike was coaching too. They had a pretty good team, and then the 1920 season, right before they got shut down because of COVID, they were like number 1 in the Coastal Division or so. So that would have been fun to watch that playoff run. But yeah, I've always been around the Clippers and went up to a few practices when I was 15 and stuff. So, yeah.
So growing up, obviously that's a big memory for you. Were there any Clippers or other BCHL players that you remember seeing maybe when you were, 10 years ago that sort of stick out in your memory?
Yeah, Sheldon Rempel's a big one. He's in the AHL now, and he was the Clippers. He scored 60 goals one year, so he was a big one. And then another one, a guy who's at Providence, Max Crozier. I remember watching him. He was in Nanaimo for a swift time there, and yeah, there's just a couple guys that I remember keeping tabs on that are playing pro or college now.
Definitely notable names in the history of the Clippers franchise, that's for sure. You played with projected NHL draft first round pick Matthew Wood on a U15 team there in Nanaimo back in 2018, which seems like forever ago now. You also, again, part of that COVID season, Matthew and yourself were on that North Island, the U18 Silvertips. Back then, when you were skating with him, playing with him, what stood out about his game?
Yeah, he was always. I've played with Matt growing up from Pee Wee all the way to a midget there, and he's been the best stick handler and the best puck protector I've ever seen. So yeah, we had a pretty good team there in midget, but obviously it got shut down because of COVID. But yeah, he's always been head over heels better than everyone, it seemed, in many different ways. So it's great to see him do what he's doing now, and I'll see him in the summer because we're in the gym all summer together. So I can heckle him a bit, but yeah, it's great to see what he's doing, and it's awesome for a guy like that to come out in Nanaimo.
I was going to ask you about that. Do you still keep in touch with a player like that, even though he's gone off to college now?
Yeah, me and Matt have been pretty close our whole hockey careers here. So I'm talking to him every day and stuff, and he's telling me all the things about college and stuff. So it's pretty cool experience that he's getting to go through, especially at such a young age.
That's what I was going to ask you about. Like with the players that you know that have gone on to that level, are you going to lean on them a little bit, knowing you've got to make that transition coming up later on this year?
Yeah, they tell you lots of things, and you can ask them questions now that they're up there, especially freshman year is probably the hardest, just adjusting. So all the freshmen I know going up there that are there right now, and then just asking them things about what to do here, what to do there, sort of thing. It's good. They give some good pointers.
Getting back to how your development may have been affected by COVID, your 15-year-old season, 16-year-old season, both affected by the pandemic. How do you think that may have played a role in impacting your development during those seasons?
Yeah, I mean, on the island here, it wasn't too bad. We were shut down there for a while, but the rink in Shawnigan opened up there pretty quick, so we got to get out there quite a bit. But yeah, it was mostly just skill work back then. You weren't allowed contact even in practice, so that might have shut it down a bit. But getting that opportunity to play in that pod at 16 there when not many other people were playing was really good for my development, in my opinion. Playing against the oldest guys that I could play against possibly, and while the younger guys were not getting to play was good. I think that really helped.
What's your favorite BCHL road arena to play in?
I like playing in Chilliwack or Penticton, the two big arenas there. Got to play in Penticton a lot while I was in Vernon, and now Chilliwack now that I'm down here. So those two are pretty fun to play in.
How come?
I think just the atmospheres they get there. They got a lot of fans coming in, but I've also heard that Vernon was a fun place to play on the road for teams. So I got to experience the fans there as well.
Now, I talk about that as your favorite road rink to play in. What's the toughest road rink to play in?
I think the toughest road rink to play in is Trail. All the fans are so close and they pack that thing in, and it's so noisy in there. And yeah, I think Trail might be the hardest rink to play in.
So why is that tough for a player to go into an atmosphere like that and stay on your game?
I just think that especially in Trail, you can hear they got fans that'll yell at you and stuff and just try and knock you off your game, and their cowbells and the people that sit right behind your bench just trying to shake your head loose sort of thing. So it's kind of, you got to keep your head on and try and block out all the other noise.
Fantastic stuff, Luke. I really appreciate you joining us here on the 2 Goal Lead podcast presented by BCHL Network.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
You heard it there. He hails from Nanaimo, British Columbia, committed to Providence College for this September. 18-year-old Luke Lavery joining us here on the 2 Goal Lead podcast presented by BCHL Network. That'll do it for this week's episode, and I want to thank you for joining us here on the 2 Goal Lead podcast. A reminder where you can find the podcast, all sorts of different places. Of course, we post it every single week on bchlnetwork.ca, but also available on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Audible, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Pandora, Spotify, and Stitcher. Also want to remind you, if you're interested in just getting your feet wet in sports journalism, we can help you with that. We're looking for writers all the time on BCHL Network. There's a button on our website, just the top menu item there says join our team, and you can just basically fill out some details. I do want to let you know that all we ask, bare minimum, in terms of joining the BCHL Network, that's what I'm trying to say. All you need to do, minimum 2 500-word articles per calendar month. Okay, if you want to just get your feet wet, we've got a great team of writers that can help you along the way. Just reach out there, click on join our team on bchlnetwork.ca. All right, that'll do it for this week's edition of the 2 Goal Lead podcast presented by BCHL Network. Once again, my name's Brian Wiebe, the owner and editor-in-chief of BCHL Network. Coming up on our next episode, this will be episode number 6 already. I can't believe we're this far into the podcast. It's totally awesome. Our guest comes from the newest team in the BC Hockey League. It is the Cranbrook Bucks, featured on next episode of the 2 Goal Lead podcast presented by BCHL Network. Thank you again for your wonderful support, and I will talk to you on our next episode.